What's up, Techno fam? Today we check out the new LG C2 Evo OLED TV, and we're going to get into it right after the jump. And I am back. Now, before we begin, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to all my patrons on Patreon. Thank you guys so much. You rock. You guys are the ones helping me make videos like this, as I had to purchase the LG C2 Evo, which is also why I went with the 48-inch, save a little money. But at the same time, I need to thank you guys, because if it wasn't for you guys helping out, I wouldn't be able to make cool videos like this. I also picked up the Samsung S95B 55-inch. I got both TVs from Value Electronics. Thank you, Robert, for sending those over super fast. And if you guys are planning on upgrading a TV in 2022, make sure you contact Value Electronics and the team over there. They will get you squared away. Now, this is probably going to be a long video, so make sure you check out the chapters and maybe jump to which parts you want to, or you just, grab some popcorn and hang out for the entire show. It's all good. It's all good. All right, let's get upstairs and unbox this TV. Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, I went with the 48-inch size for the C2 Evo, as this TV will be going into my gaming cave, and I wanted to try out a smaller TV size and, of course, save a couple $100. And pricing of the C2 Evo as of this video is as follows: 48-inch, $1,500, 55-inch, $1,800, 65-inch, $2,500, 77-inch, $3,500, and $5,500 for the 83. In the box, we have the newly designed Magic Remote from last year, batteries for the remote, 7 screws for the stand, IR extender, and literature. Looking at the stand assembly here, we have 3 parts: the back, the front, and the cover plate. Whenever I need to install a stand to the TV, I usually place a towel on my dining table and place the TV still in its packaging material onto the towel. I purposefully keep the bottom of the TV at the edge of the table for stand installation. Now, before we get into the stand assembly, let's take a look at the connections while we're here. On the back of the TV, we have HDMI number 4, a couple of USBs, IR blaster jack, RF antenna in, Ethernet port, digital optical audio output, an RS-232 jack, and a 3.5mm analog audio output as well. On the left side of the TV, we have 1 USB and HDMI ports 1, 2, and 3. HDMI number 2 is designated as the ARC/eARC port, and all 4 HDMI ports on the C2 support 4K 120Hz with full 48 gigabit per second bandwidth. And moving to the opposite side of the TV, you will find an attached power cable. LG gives us a total of 7 screws. 3 are for attaching the front and the back of the stand together, and then 4 to attach the stand to the TV panel itself. So we slide the front into the back of the stand and secure them with the 3 screws from the bottom. And here's what it looks like when the stand is fully assembled. Now that's out of the way, we need to line it up and place it on the back of the TV. We will use the remaining 4 screws to attach the stand, and then put the plastic cover in place. All right, let's get the C2 downstairs and in place to turn it on. As far as connections are concerned right now, I have the Pioneer LX505 connected to HDMI number 2, which is the designated ARC port. Going through the on-screen setup is pretty self-explanatory. The TV will talk to you and then ask if you want to turn off audio guidance, which I totally did because that was super annoying. I did turn on AI Picture Pro, but when I was going back and forth with AI Sound Pro, I decided to keep it off. I'm not sure you can tell by the camera's built-in microphone, but keeping it off just sounded better to me. Also, I will be using that Pioneer AVR, so it's not a huge deal for me to have the TV making sound. Now, of course, you can go through all this and make your own selections, and we're not going to get into any more of that. But let's go into how to set up 4K HDR, which also includes 4K 120Hz HDR for gaming consoles like the PS5, Xbox Series X, and gaming PCs with the RTX video cards. Right now I have my Zapiti player going into the AV receiver and then heading up to the TV. And as soon as I change inputs, we get a prompt about setting up HDMI deep color. So this is what you need to turn on when you're setting up 4K HDR for external devices. So let's just jump into the settings so you guys know exactly where this is. To navigate to the setting, press and hold the setting button on the remote, a long press, which will bring up the All Settings menu. Scroll down to General, then select Devices, and then HDMI Settings. Here's where we find the HDMI deep color setting, and all we have to do is set it to 4K. Now, if you are using more external 4K HDR devices like Roku Ultra, Apple TV, NVIDIA Shield TV Pro, Xbox Series X, PS5, a 4K Blu-ray player, whatever that happens to be, you'll have to select the input and then do this again. So this is a per input setting. And I remember back in the day on my 2019 LG OLED, you could actually just go in and just change it for every input all at once in one section. Now it's a little bit different. You actually have to have that input active, and then you go into the settings, or you just turn it on and let it, the little dialog box come up, and then you press, OK, and it'll turn it on. So you will have to do this per input depending on how many 4K HDR external devices you have. Now that that's done and out of the way, let's go and show you guys how to turn on ARC and eARC. Now, before we jump into the menu, you need to make sure that your ARC ports are connected. HDMI number 2 on the back of the LG is going to be your designated ARC port, and then whatever port it is on your AV receiver. Some of them have one HDMI output, some of them have 2, others have 3. So you just have to figure out which one is the ARC port. Usually it's highlighted in some way, shape, or form. It's like got a white background or something like that, depending on the AVR manufacturer. But you want to make sure that those 2 ports are connected together. And of course, if you are trying to run 4K, 120 Hz, and all that kind of stuff through your receiver to the TV, you need to make sure that that HDMI cable is an 8K cable. Pressing the settings button and going down to audio, if you scroll right or left, you will see a lot of options. We want it on HDMI ARC device. Now you can either scroll down to go into all settings or do a long press on the settings button to get into the all settings menu. Go down to sound, then advanced settings. Scroll all the way down and you will see 2 settings, eARC support and digital sound output. Now, here's the thing. If you are only using the internal apps on the TV and you don't have any external devices connected to the TV, and you're just trying to get Dolby Atmos, from the TV's app like Netflix or Vudu or whatever, to the AVR, you don't have to change any of the settings here, because Atmos from your TV apps is coming in through Dolby Digital Plus, DD Plus. That's what that means right there. So that means you're done. You don't really need to do anything for standard ARC. You can leave these 2 settings alone. The only thing you'll have to do is change to HDMI in parentheses ARC device, and it should figure itself out. There is one other setting we need to change, but if you want enhanced audio return channel, meaning if you have something like a 4K Blu-ray player attached to the TV or an Xbox Series X attached to the TV, and you want to send an uncompressed audio signal out of HDMI 2 to the AV receiver in what we call True HD, which is the lossless version of Dolby Atmos, then we need to change these 2 settings here. Obviously, we're going to need to turn on eARC support and then go into digital audio output and set this to pass through. Now, there is one more setting on the TV we need to make sure is on. Some AVRs need this to be on for eARC to work, and that is CEC. So we need to go back to all settings, go to General, then go to Devices, then go to HDMI Settings, and make sure HDMI-CEC is turned on. Now, when you have CEC enabled, you'll be able to control devices with your Magic Remote. Now, not like totally control it, but basically if you turn on the TV, I notice it'll turn on the Pioneer AVR and it'll set the Pioneer to the TV input. Changing the volume on the TV remote will also change the volume on the AVR. Now, one of the things that's interesting is I have the LG UBK90 4K Blu-ray player connected to HDMI 1 on the TV. Now, if I just select HDMI 1 on the TV, CEC will go ahead and turn on the 4K Blu-ray player, and there you go. Like, it's just kind of automatic. So in that same regard, if you hit power on the TV remote, it'll turn off all of your devices, right? So it'll turn off the Blu-ray player, turn off the TV, turn off the AVR. So pretty cool. But it does kind of like, you know, get to an annoying part sometimes, because like if I just turn on the AV receiver and it's set to game and my PS5 is connected to game, then it'll like turn on the PS5 and turn on the TV. And then I'm like, well, I didn't want the PS5. So it's kind of annoying at times because it may turn on a few items that you don't want to have turned on, and then it'll switch inputs on you and this, that, and the other. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But if you do want to run eARC, you have to have CEC turned on. So there it is. That's what it is. And a little warning for you guys. Now, we're not completely done with our eARC setup because we still have to go into the AVR and change one or two settings there. Now, I'm not going to talk you through all of this. I've had so many AVRs here, so I just kind of went back in my previous videos, and I've got a list for you, which I'll put up on screen now. And if you need to, just go ahead and pause the video so you have the directions on where to go to turn on what you need to turn on for the different manufacturers of AV receivers. All right, guys, now we're getting into the 5 tips section. And if you're purchasing this TV, you've never had any of these kinds of TVs like OLEDs or just an LG in general or whatever. Anyway, here's 5 things that you need to do. At least this is what I had to do to get this guy up and running and just make sure like you're getting the best experience. Anyway, I saw some of these tips on a YouTube channel called The Tech Giant, and he had some other great tips as well. So I'm taking a couple of his and adding a couple of mine. So thank you, Tech Giant, for the idea. I'll put your link, his video link down in the description so you guys can check it out as well. And let's start off with number 1, most important, which I didn't even realize, is that there is a protective film on the back of the TV, and you're going to need to make sure you take that off. And as you can see, I didn't really notice it. TV's already in place and the protective covering is there, so make sure you take that off. Now, the next thing we're going to do is turn off auto updates, or at least make sure it is off. If you haven't seen my video I made a couple years back, a lot of times, like I remember so many TV reviews I've done where, you know, Sony had an auto update, boom, you know, something started working and that broke something else, like eARC. Like VRR started working and then eARC was broken or something like that. You know, an LG will do it too, and Samsung will do it too. Like all of a sudden, you know, everyone across the United States or Europe, or depending on wherever the update happened first, is just like, oh, my TV's bricked. So let's make sure auto updates is turned off. To do that, let's go long press on the settings button to get into the all settings menu. Scroll down and select support. Then select software update. Make sure auto update is off. If it is on, move over to it and then turn off auto update. Now, the third tip is that we want to turn off the power saving mode because I want to get the max amount of brightness out of this panel. especially for my testing. And then, you know, just for like viewing, if you want to try to conserve power and all that kind of stuff, just know that there's a bit of brightness that you are losing from the panel. So again, let's jump into the all settings menu with a long press on the settings button on the remote. Go to General, OLED Care, Device Self-Care, Energy Saving, and make sure that is set to off, or go into the setting and select off. Now I noticed that the TV got a little bit brighter when I turned this off right away. So this will ensure we get the max brightness out of this panel. Tip number 4 is for gamers strictly, because this has to deal with the game optimizer. Now going from the C1, which I have upstairs, the 83-inch, to the C2, which is down here, it's actually that guy right there. That one. That's it. Oh, look, woo! Fireworks, yeah. So going from the C1 to the C2 is very interesting because you actually have to activate the game optimizer on the C2. Whereas the C1, it was just kind of there. Once it detected a video game was playing and you hit the settings button, boom, the optimizer would pop up. But that didn't happen. I was kind of worried what was going on. So turns out there's a setting we got to set. So let's do another long press on the settings button to bring up the all settings menu. Scroll down to General, scroll to and select the game optimizer. Now it has a little toggle in the upper right. So just click the OK button and it'll toggle over and you'll see the game optimizer activate when the color changes to like purple or whatever this is. So now when you're in a gaming console, pressing the settings button brings up the game optimizer like this. And tip number 5 is to turn off motion interpolation, otherwise known as true motion for the LG TVs and commonly known as the soap opera effect. Okay, so let's go and turn that off because that's the first thing I always do. Now I really like the Cinema or Cinema Home. I know upstairs, you know, we got a lot more light, so Cinema Home kind of is a little bit brighter because of the ambient light in that room. Here Cinema is okay, but I just went with Cinema Home. So let's jump into Cinema Home and just realize that you will have to make this change for SDR, HDR, and Dolby Vision. Okay, so let me show you how to do that. So again, we do a long press on the settings button to bring up the all settings menu. Select picture, and I've already got Cinema Home selected. So I'm going to scroll down to advanced settings, then scroll and select clarity, and scroll down to true motion and turn this setting to off. Now, something is interesting here. If you are using a lot of external devices, meaning you've got 3 or 4 things plugged into the TV, you will have to do this per input. There is an apply to all inputs, but you may or you may not want to do that. It all depends on how you want to set up your TV. But for me, since I'm running an AV receiver on HDMI 2, I'll definitely do it for that. And I have the 4K Blu-ray player in HDMI 1, and I have the Xbox Series X in HDMI 4. So I'm going to make sure I do this for those inputs. Now, there is something interesting about Dolby Vision on the C1 as opposed to the C2. It was really easy for me on the C2, this guy here, to change true motion on a Dolby Vision setting, because you can just go in and turn it off. Whereas on the C1, which I have upstairs, you weren't allowed to do that. The option was grayed out when you were in Dolby Vision. Now I know Keep It Classy Tech, he told me there is a way to turn it off for the LG C1. It's in a different menu. I got to ask him again because I totally spaced and totally forgot. But you should definitely check out his channel. Links down in description. Okay, so first impressions time. Now, my pattern generator is kind of on the fritz and I might get a new one. I don't know what's going on. So I did not calibrate the TV just yet. So these are all just out of the box picture modes, out of the box settings. The only settings I changed were the ones we just spoke about in the tips section. And I gotta say, I think LG definitely has a great looking TV here and I can't wait to spend more time with it. For me specifically, it has the inky blacks, no blooming. I'm really sensitive to blooming. I hate that. So there's no blooming. Of course, it's an OLED. It's got great color, great pop, a user-friendly OS, and all the gaming features you can shake a stick at, ready to go out of the box. Speaking of gaming, there is a little gaming footage here. Again, this is all out of the box picture modes, pre-calibration. So you may have an experience that is close to this right here. Running 4K 120 HDR or Dolby Vision is not a problem with this TV. Like I said, all the gaming features are working right out of the box. And I gotta say, in my little gaming cave here, this was a great little experience. Now I know there's a lot of talk and a lot of people saying that the QD or Quantum Dot OLED is better, and I will soon see when I unbox the Samsung S95B, which is here in-house. But the one thing that everybody is forgetting is price. For the 55-inch size, the LG C2 comes in at $1,800 and the Samsung comes in at $2,200. That's a $400 difference. That $400 difference is over 20% more expensive than the LG in its size. And since you're paying that much more for a TV, shouldn't it give a better picture? I mean, that makes sense. So then, is it a fair comparison to put these two TVs together? If you have a strict budget of under $2,000 for a TV, would you try to squeeze out that extra money? I mean, do you want to compare apples to apples or apples to oranges? I mean, for its size and its price, I think the LG C2 Evo OLED has got to be one of the best TVs under $2,000 for 2022, all things considered. Okay, so that's all things. It's weighing in everything, right? After all, it is an OLED TV and it has all the gaming features working right out of the box. But I want to know what you think. So you tell me, is it worth it to buy a standard WRGB panel OLED when the new QD OLED, which is an RGB subpixel structure panel, when that's available? Interesting. Let me know down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good night. Peace.